I'm going to start with with curing patients. So let me first say that it is a tall order to describe the strategy that we set out for ourselves for the next few years in a few minutes. And I think all of my colleagues are going to have the same challenge. But somehow I got lucky with curing patients because, after all, curing patients has been at the heart of the malaria community and MMV's work for decades. So you might be asking yourselves at this time, what else can we do and what is new here? So I can assure you there will be some familiar themes because the work has to continue to build on what we are already doing. But as with any strategy, we have to be ready to respond to the current challenges. And there isn't a greater challenge that's been discussed at this conference and a more worrisome than drug resistance. So in essence, I could summarize that Pillar 1, curing patients, is all about staying ahead of resistance. So how do we propose to do that? Well, number one, we need to preserve existing antimalarials. Number two, we need to develop and deliver new drug combinations. Number three, we need to shorten the treatment regimens. So I'm going to take a few minutes and give you a few examples how we intend to do that. So back to point number one, staying ahead of resistance by preserving existing antimalarials. So here we are very much aligned with the WHO resistance strategy. Multiple first-line therapies has been a concept promoted by MMV, my Access colleagues, in fact, from the beginning. We moved that from concept to action by co-leading 2 pilot studies in Burkina Faso and in Kenya, which are now serving as a building block for the bigger consortia that are coming together. And just a couple of days ago, I was privileged to join my colleagues for a meeting between ALARM Consortium and the STAP AMDR. And I have to tell you that we were invited to continue supporting and facilitating and convening the countries to help them get over the line and actually roll out this challenging program. There are other examples where we're fully aligned with WHO, such as the triple ACT and single low-dose Primaquine plus ACT. And there we have a number of partners who call on us for expertise and specific tasks. And I just want to point out FOSN group, who we are supporting and getting over the line through the pre-qualification process with their co-packaged, co-developed, co-delivered, hopefully, Primaquine plus ACT. So moving on to point number 2, staying ahead of resistance by developing new combinations. Here we'll continue to work with our pharma partners to advance the pipeline, hopefully successfully. We have a phase 3 program with Novartis, again, the plasmid lumefantrine. You might also know that we have some earlier phase 2 programs with partners such as Merck in Germany and Zydus Cadila in India. We have also novel classes which could be combined with existing antimalarials to make it a little bit faster in terms of delivery. And in all of this work, thinking about new combinations, severe malaria remains very high on our map for obvious reasons. Because if artemisinin resistance was to fully materialize, the lives of these patients would be at risk first. So we have a number of new molecules in the pipeline, and they have to be fast-acting. That is the key operative word here. And we hope to bring them at least through phase 2 so that we could be ready in case of an emergency arising. Moving on to number 3, staying ahead of resistance by shortening treatment regimens, preferably to single dose. This is important not just for the convenience of the patients, but how it connects to the compliance. And a patient who does not complete their treatment regimen is at risk of residual parasites and developing resistance. Also, for elimination campaigns, it is an obvious choice to have a single delivery of a drug. But it is a very high bar for chemical entities, as you might know. But we do have molecules, promising molecules in the pipeline that are potent, that are fast-acting, that stay longer, that are refractory to resistance, and have no signals, or not worrying signals, in reprotoxicology studies in animals. And I'm going to digress for a minute, maybe less, if Lizzie allows me, on the importance of the last point of the clean reprotox profile. And that is because a key element of MMV's strategy is to intentionally include in our development programs the key target population that is often forgotten, and that is the pregnant and lactating women. And in order to do that, there is no better place to start than with candidates in our pipeline that actually have this toxicology profile that we can then more comfortably collect data on during the development stages, such as pharmacokinetic profile, to ensure that the efficacious dose that we hope to bring to the market is actually going to be equally efficacious for pregnant women, to use latest state-of-the-art in mathematical modeling to predict the passage of drugs to placenta, through placenta, or to breast milk. And this all will allow us to continue collecting data post-registration in order to close the gap of the equitable availability of drugs to pregnant and lactating women. So it was a bit long digression, but I thought it was important to say. So I'm going to conclude now. In conclusion, MMV will continue to work to bring new treatments to cure patients, to stay ahead of resistance, and to cover all patient populations, including pregnant and lactating women. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Nikoye Otsiula, who is a Global Medical Affairs Director at Novartis. She is a very talented and capable woman. Not only is she a medical doctor with 20 years of experience, she's also a researcher in infectious diseases, who worked both on drugs and vaccines. But importantly for us, she is based in Nairobi. And as such, she brings key inputs from the ground to our joint development program with Novartis, so that as she bridges the development and commercial teams and helps us do all the work that we do together in this partnership. So with that, I'd like to turn over to Nikoye.
One finger does not kill a louse. This is a saying we have in Swahili that suggests that without unity, we cannot defeat a common adversary. In this case, we're talking about malaria. Novartis is an R&D company with bench through clinical development, through access, or bedside as we call it, capabilities. And we brought the first fixed dose combination ACT to patients in their hands 25 years ago. And at that time, patients were dying of malaria. We have been two fingers in a hand with MMV for the last 2 decades. Because after bringing this fixed dose combination to patients, we then collaborated on the development of the pediatric dispersible tablet for temethylomefantrin. This has been the workhorse of malaria treatment for the last almost 2 decades. Novartis' commitment to meeting unmet needs or addressing unmet needs continues, and we have 4 projects going that we're working with MMV on. The first is to avail treatment for little babies weighing less than 5 kilos, for whom the current recommendations reflect currently available tools, which are not entirely fit for purpose due to ontogeny. We have a symposium on Friday to unpack our Kalina study, which we worked on collaboratively with MMV and Pan-Africa, and we hope that you will come by. The second big bucket is resistance. And it really, you can see the themes that are flowing between us and MMV. And remembering what I said about what was happening 25 years ago, we're extremely honored to be in a position to have something to bring to the table to address the current threat of resistance. We have the ganaplacide lumefantrine program ongoing, development program. We've partnered with MMV starting at phase 2, and for phase 3, we've been joined by the WANECAM consortium. Ganaplacide lumefantrine is a drug that, first of all, is once daily dosed, so it provides the potential for ease of use to patients, more convenience. Secondly, it's efficacious against both artemisinin-sensitive and resistant strains of Plasmodium falciparum, which is our current concern. And thirdly, has the potential for transmission blocking, which then allows use that's far broader than what we currently have in a simplified manner. As Viveka so eloquently mentioned, if we lose artemisinin, then we lose the standard of care for severe malaria. And to that end, we're working on cipargamin. It's in phase 2 of development. It's also called KAE 609. And for this, we're collaborating with Pan-Africa, funded by EDCTP, and MMV is the coordinator of this grant. Quite lockstep with MMV, we're looking towards simplification of treatment. We have a platform study ongoing that would be looking at the next generation dual or triple combinations. And the aim here is to address the need for adherence, compliance, and potentially prevent resistance, because these treatments will be working at different points of the life cycle, all with novel novel mechanisms of action. I'd like to note here that we're not repurposing old drugs. We actually go and do discovery, development, preclinical studies, and come through clinical development with our partners, of whom MMV is our major partner. I'm hoping in these examples you have seen exactly what Andrea said at the beginning. You've seen MMV's independence, their broad stakeholder mapping, their ability to convene these various stakeholders and unite the purpose, and their strategic and thought leadership, which they lend us. And finally, the one that Andrea just swept over, which is the co-funding of our projects. We fund them together. And this is very, very helpful, especially when you think about future access. So you sitting in the room, you might be a researcher. You might be on an ethics committee, and it's your work to review our proposals. You might be a regulator, and you review both the study proposals and the dossiers that come out at the end. Or you might be a policymaker. We've had Dr. Daniel's commitment to streamlining efforts to go through guideline review and recommendation. And our call to action is this. We would like to work towards zero malaria in a very streamlined and efficient fashion. Is there anything we can do about the hurdles? You are part of our treatment hand, and many other hands have to join together to defeat malaria because, ladies and gentlemen, one finger cannot, will not kill a louse. Thank you.